Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, guys? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show. Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today. Today, our badass guest is Jeremy Mahugh. He served 10 years as a Navy SEAL, exiting as a petty officer second class. He founded Spyderwatch, Inc. in 2024, located in Boise, Idaho. You can follow Jeremy on Instagram and LinkedIn, and to take a deeper dive, go check out Spyderwatch.com. Brother, welcome to the show.
Hey, brother. Good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, man. So I'm always fascinated by this because it seems like everybody has like a gnarly story, but talk to me about, you served for 10 years in the special operations, which is a crazy hardcore job. It truly is a lot of effort. And then you transition out. It's so hard to get in. It's so easy to get out. What does the transition look like for you?
Super crazy. Actually, when I was about to get out, I had some like command master chiefs try to talk me into sticking around and saying, look, you're at this point now where it only gets better and easier and you blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I'm leaving. And they said, well, here's like a transition, like the Navy's transition course. And I was like, I don't even need to go to that. I just like, there's nothing to offer me. Right. It was just like whatever they did, it was all administrative stuff that I just didn't care about. And so I was like, I'm just getting out. And for me, I kind of, the last couple of years I was at a shore duty down in Panama City Beach, Florida. And so I had bought some property and I bought some tractors and, to start working some land. And so I was like, look, man, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get out, but I like driving tractors. And so it randomly happened that like my dad was telling me a friend of the family had an excavation business up in Montana. So I was really looking like, do I stay in Florida and do some of these excavation type jobs down there? It's pretty good money. It's kind of cool. It's fun. Or do I move back to Montana? What I ended up doing was, over the years I bought multiple properties. And so I had like 5 houses and so I was like property rich and pocketbook poor, going into the 2008, 2009 crash. It was awesome. So the property that I had, I ended up taking out a big line of credit essentially, or equity loan, and putting $100,000 down to buy, or not down, but I bought all this excavation equipment. So I bought old equipment, but it was like a semi truck, a dump truck, a big front end loader, just all this stuff that like immediately put me in an excavation business. I didn't even know how to drive a dump truck. I didn't have a CDL. I had to just go figure it all out. I didn't know how to drive the excavator. I mean, I was good with I drove STVs in the Navy. So it was like a lot of hand-eye coordination type stuff, but I just had to figure it out. I mean, it was really kind of comical to watch me in the very beginning of that, but I just jumped in and figured it out. And I started that, ran that business, still have that business, more of a hobby these days because I'm doing other stuff, but I love driving tractors and it's kind of my therapy today. Here we are, 18 years later or whatever. But now obviously they have like these amazing things. I talk to these guys that I get hooked up with from the Honor Foundation and stuff. Right. And I went to speak in New York City to one of these events they were doing. It wasn't the Honor Foundation, but it was John Allen was involved in something. I forget what the name of it was, but it was basically for Elite Meat. That's right. Yeah. So, they had these guys, Elite Meat, where they're really connecting these business owners, business people with, soft guys. And super cool. Like none of that existed when I was getting out. I mean, I got out in 2006. And so it's cool to see what they have now. But for me, it was like, figure it out, man. Like started an excavation business, figure out how to drive a tractor, and I didn't know anything about it. And it would have been great looking back if I had somebody to help mentor me, especially with the financial side of it. I had no idea how to be successsul with the financial side of it, and when you start a business on your own, this, you jump into I got to learn how to use QuickBooks. Okay. I gotta like send invoices. I'm doing all that stuff at night after I've done the work during the day. And you're just trying to figure out all the stuff at once. And if you don't have somebody that kind of walks you through here, set some goals. Here's the path, start here, but have a plan. I didn't really have a plan. I just jumped into it.
It's interesting, man. You say that because I remember when I got out, I actually had a plan, and I got out to take that job. And then I got to Dallas, and the company was down 40%. So they're like, dude, we're firing, not hiring. And I'm like, oh, so now I've been banking on the fact that I had this really awesome position. Now I have nothing, and I don't know anything, and I don't even know any people here. And I remember sitting down with one of my mentors, grateful to have him. And he said, okay, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And then when I finally figured it out, he's like, okay, so this is what you want to do. So this is where you are at right now. And then this is the objective you want to get to. So now we got to fill in the middle part. And I was like, oh, that seems pretty awesome and easy. And that is a nightmare. And I think that's the biggest thing about transition is, as much as we have to think on our feet and make quick thoughts and quick actions in that, when you get out of the service, you don't have any hand holding whatsoever. Like, it's all on you. So, man, did you always know that you were an entrepreneur?
I did. I feel like I did. Even when I was in the Navy, I just started going out and figuring out little side hustle type jobs, outside of the Navy.
Yeah.
Even like the last couple of years, I was down in Panama City Beach. Another Navy SEAL and I started a decorative concrete business, and we just figured it out. We just started doing something. I was really into buying real estate, and I thought that was a good deal. And I thought over time, maybe I'd buy a bunch of rental homes and then, one day just have it as passive income. The 2008, 2009 timeframe, I really cashed out a lot of that and consolidated up into Montana. And it was difficult to run some of those things I still had in Virginia and Florida from Montana after I moved up there. So, yeah.
Wow. So, okay, so you've Montana, you've been in Texas, you've been in Florida, Virginia. I mean, what's your favorite place?
There's a quote by John Steinbeck that says was it like something about, I have admiration for many states, but for Montana, I only have love. I kind of feel like that's my quote, right? Because I am so biased to Montana, and I grew up in a good part of Montana, up close to Glacier National Park, and just that whole area up there. It's amazing, at least in the summertime.
That's awesome, man. This is the one state that I have not been to that my wife keeps telling me, we got to go. And I'm like, what do you know about Montana to want to go so bad? And she's like, I see all the pictures. It's beautiful. And everybody's living there and telling me to come. We're going to make it happen.
We got a place for you.
Oh, we're in. All right, let's dig into Spyderwatch. Tell me about, why did you create this? Where did it come from? Tell us all the goods.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, after doing excavation for a while in Montana, and keep in mind the ground freezes pretty hard in the winter for about 6 months, it seems like. So I ended up going working and as a contractor, as one of these private contractors to the intelligence community, doing that program, right? And so furthering a career in counterterrorism, if you will. Fast forward about 6 years after that, I jumped into a couple of things. One, I did a political campaign for our friend Ryan Zinke, former Navy SEAL, running for U.S. Congress out of Montana. So I got, some interesting contacts from that. Some people that had some, financial capability as well that were more in the political realm. But then talked to a former guy that I'd worked with, at the agency, and he was wanting to start a nonprofit around countering human trafficking. And so I was like, I'm all in. As soon as you want to do that, I'm in. So I jumped into that really as a co-founder of that, and did that for about 8 years. So furthering this counter human trafficking, or this counter terrorism, into this counter human trafficking kind of methodology, and focusing, in the United States domestically, because what we realized it's the American dollar and this American mail that drive these markets around the world. And we also realized that a lot of it's turned into, business that's being done on your smartphone. And so the advertising of these basically illicit sex advertising was happening on websites like Backpage.com, for example, that was based out of Dallas. And it looked like escort ads, but essentially it's sex advertising. And so we really focused on that. So just moving from that further forward, how could we get ahead of this? How can we create a tool that was really in the prevention side of keeping somebody from being victimized in the first place? And so fast forward down this path, what we realized, it's actually pretty hard to sell to you and other people that live in affluent neighborhoods that like your like human trafficking is a real thing that could affect you and your family, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all sheep and we really don't think that threat's real to us. But what we do realize is our children are under all kinds of other threats. Our children are under threat on social media from being bullied, from somebody trying to get our personal information for however they want to use it, whether it's a financial crime or whether it's, you know, something else. Like we've actually seen through the nonprofit where somebody contacted a child, whether through a gaming device or social media, started to build up a rapport over time, and then eventually showed up a couple blocks up the road, saying, hey, I'm right here. Child goes there, 14, 15-year-old boy goes, gets abducted and is taken across state lines like immediately, you know, and the FBI gets involved at that point. We get them involved and we're able to get the boy back. But, you know, those are the kinds of threats that are out there, and people do realize those are real threats. And so what the parents don't realize is what's happening because they have no visibility into seeing what's happening, especially on like social media. And so you have things like Snapchat today where, you know, you have disappearing messages and people say horrible things on there, and parents have no idea why their kid's all depressed and all these other issues going on. And so like we just wanted to work our way into that and figure out how to have a really healthy solution where you could identify real threats in real time and get a parent a notification of what that threat was. And then the third part of that is how to react to it. So if I'm a parent, let's say I'm a single dad of a 14-year-old girl and she comes home, goes in her room, slams the door, I have no idea what's going on. But if I had an app, a tool that allowed me to see, oh, I see she was being bullied at school by this group. Here it is on Snapchat. Here's the evidence. And oh, by the way, here's a 2-minute tutorial from a child psychologist on how to deal with your daughter when there's this kind of threat or this kind of self-harm or whatever it is, you know. So we built this and are continuing to build it. We're hoping to be in market in the next 4 or 5 months. We're still raising capital for it to get it over that final line. We're getting ready to do a series of things in that to raise that capital and finish it up. But we're close. We've got we're beyond the conceptual phase. We're just in the tactical execution phase of it. And, the other thing that I think is really interesting that we've just never really seen before is we've always kind of envisioned like in our children, girls being more preyed upon than boys. And currently right now in some areas, we're even seeing this flip, this switch where, for example, recently in West Africa, like Nigeria region, you've got these criminal enterprises essentially where these guys are they just have a mass amount of people that are building accounts on social media like Instagram. And just recently there was, I forget if it was like 67,000 accounts that were taken down from Instagram, all attributed to this group called the Yahoo Boys. And the Yahoo Boys is basically this criminal enterprise that's looking to find specifically boys in the US who they can start sending messages to, pretend like they're a pretty girl. And as soon as you get to that point where the boy sends a photo, like an illicit photo, like a naked photo, they say, give me $1,000 or give me $100 or whatever. I mean, the average is probably somewhere around $200, but oftentimes these boys have no idea, what to do next. And they feel guilty, shameful. And the FBI has reported that we've had more than 20 suicides from boys because of that, in the first quarter of this year. And so I know there's been more, but it's a very tragic thing. It's called sextortion. So it's a financial crime, but it's all based off of them trying to, get these illicit photos or videos to go back and forth. And so yet again, another thing that it's a wave that's happening right now, but it's something that we can get in front of and we can protect children and allow parents have access into that threat so they can deal with it and talk to their child, even if their child does send a photo and it's too late, at least they can get to their child before their child decides to do something harmful, right? And you take that even a step further now with the technology that's out there. You've got apps that nudify. So you're starting to hear about this a lot in school. If somebody is bullying somebody else, oftentimes they can just take an app and take your picture and then nudify it. So it's basically making you look like you're naked now, or they can just take somebody else's naked photo and put it on your face and vice versa, right? So one of the investors in my company actually called me and said, hey, my son who's 15 just got this picture sent to him, and it's basically his face with a naked photo, and they're asking for $100. And
Is
he's
that
like, Mom.
something like where they'd say like, you give me $100 or we're going to release this, something like that?
Yeah, yeah, and right. So that's the next step of this. They say, if you don't give me money, I'm going to send this to your parents. I'm going to send this to your church. I'm going to send this to everybody. And that's where these kids become, out of guilt and shame, mortified, and they don't know what to do. And they have no real perspective on like what this actually is and how it's actually happening. And so that's why these boys have committed suicide. And so, anyways, this boy in particular went to his parents. Thank goodness you have a good child-parent relationship. And the boy said, Mom, look, this is not me, but this just showed up. And she's like, are you sure it's not you? And then the dad got involved. He's like, no, look, I've seen him naked. That's not him. But, and so like they had to coach him through it, and say, don't send the $100. And like, it's a numbers game that these guys are playing, and it's not even like, again, it's not even him. But that's the world we live in today. And these kids are getting hit from this stuff with basically this open back door that has oftentimes no real good security around it. And so the kids don't know how to handle that. And so at least giving parents an insight into what's going on, that visibility into threats their kids are facing in real time, and then giving them a resource of like how to handle it, and even educate their child into becoming a better digital, citizen, where you can build trust in your child, because, you got to build that healthy skepticism in your child, so they understand that like not everybody on the internet's their friend, and like things are going on.
It's interesting you say that, because my wife was given one of those, I don't remember what it's like, either like Oculus or whatever, virtual reality systems. And so my kids, of course, they want to try it, and I've never tried it before. So I put it on just to get it fired up and figure it out. And about 5 minutes into it, I think I was almost about to vomit because the reality and the sensory overload and that. But I was like, I don't know. And then I Google it. Okay, the kids should not be on it for long periods of time. They keep fighting me to like get on it and try it. So I was like, all right, what do you guys want to see? And then they're fascinated with, cars and Titanic. So I put them on this whole thing where you could go experience being on the Titanic. And then it sinks. And I'm like, well, why would you want to go on a boat that sinks? And that's sad. And they're like, well, I just want to be on the Titanic. So I get them on. And now all of a sudden kids are talking to me and people are talking to me. And I get them set up. Well, then I put it on their head. And then all of a sudden my son is talking to somebody. And I'm like, wait, what? So I put it on my head and I listen. And this kid is asking my son, like, where he lives. What's his name? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, back 40 years ago, it'd just be a kid asking, where do you live? Hey, we could be pen pals type like that. Now it's like, who is this guy? Who is this person? We don't know. And they're listening everywhere. And so it's terrifying, man. It's like, how do I shut this piece off? And then again, like you said, the kids are out of our sight most of the day when they're in school and they're doing activities and that. So what is going on? Where are they at? How can we help prevent some of this stuff? So this is a really cool, much needed app, man. I'm pretty excited about it. So you said that you've gotten past the concept phase and now you're actually into the operational side of the house. What can people do to help you? How can we get behind you and help you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. We really want to build a movement around this. There's some other apps out there that do child monitoring type things. We really want to focus this in on like, what are real threats, and in real time we can protect children from becoming victims, And so like we have some really amazing experts in the field that have all gotten behind this. But we really want to just build it into a movement, because really for, $10 a month, parents are going to be able to be part of this thing that, again, like that resource center, that, this hub with all this information that they can have as a learning source. If nothing else, they're going to be able to have that at their fingertips and be able to like educate their children. But they're also going to get these alerts. So in doing all of this, everybody that we've talked to said, the time is right and the subject is right for doing some sort of crowdfund kind of deal. So actually in about 3 weeks, we're going to launch a crowdfund. It's a reward-based crowdfund. So we'll have different perks that people can get to include some educational things on how you keep your children safe. But people can contribute to that. And so it's a big benefit for us to kind of move the ball forward with this as well. So just getting it out into these like groups of people, and that's a great way for us to start doing it, where we can start getting the word out there. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting to me over the years, as I've spoke to groups of people, churches, parents, all these people, they're always asking like, what are the resources that are out there? What can I do? What are all these questions? And so, I was always somewhat limited. There's a handful of other apps that are out there, but most parents have never heard of them. There's a ton of blue ocean out there that you can go after. And I just think having something where you build this movement, where you get it in front of the right people that really promote it and push it and share it, and just get it out there as a tool that people can go, look, here's finally a way to really keep my kids safe in a way that hasn't really been done before that I've seen. And, we've got former law enforcement officers who have spent a career in the internet crimes against children, and they're super excited about this because they see it too, where it's like, this just hasn't really been done this way before. And so, it's exciting, and it's just going to be simple and elegant to have a simple, elegant tool to keep kids safe. And that's it.
That's awesome, man. On that front, you're setting up this crowdfunding site, and we'll definitely, when you get that up and running, we'll blast that out. Are you looking for investors as well?
Yeah, we are. We're still raising $5 million to get this all the way through. So,
okay. So if you're listening and you like to invest in things, especially your children, this is the place for you. So we'll make sure
it's kind of a win-win, right? I mean, how often do you get to invest in something that is going to have a huge positive societal impact? It's a legacy thing for you and your kids. I mean, if you have your grandparent, like your grandkids, I've got one grandparent who invests in our companies. Like, this is one of the biggest fears I have. I see my grandkids all day. They're just like looking at their phone. I don't know who they're talking to or what the conversations are. And so something like this is, it's something that's imperative as we try and move into this generation of kids who, I mean, I've just been in these conversations recently with some guys who were part of BlackBerry and Research in Motion, right? And you remember, like, for me, about the time I was getting out of the Navy was kind of, everybody was BlackBerries, right? And even when I was working at the agency, everybody used BlackBerries. Like, that was like the first real smartphone, And when I came in the Navy, so I came in the Navy in 96, and really about that 97, 98, it was just these flip phones were like coming out. It was like, you had a cell phone, flip phone. It was like, okay. And 10 years later, we're getting the smartphone. And then a couple years later after that, you got the iPhone. And now literally you can do any business from anywhere, but also you can do bad things from anywhere. You can access, but kids can do that too. Kids can access all of these things, and so, like, building systems around that to help keep our kids safe is like, we're in that time period right now where we have to do something now, or the wave of tragedy that can follow that is crazy. And now is the time too, because AI is both good and bad, as we know, but like it can be used in such a good way, and we can build tools leveraging AI to keep our children safe, and that's where we're at.
Well, I love this on so many different fronts. I mean, you mentioned like bullying. So bullying's the big key. We actually just got word that in possibly our son's middle school that there was some bullying happening, and my son's in elementary, one of them. So you think about the fear of the future of like, okay, he's going to be at that point. So do I got to train him in, like, being able to do tactical reloads and that, so that when he gets to school, he's got a full kit and he's ready to beat everybody's ass? No, it's like, but then you take that massively a step further to this sex exploitation and, being, taking all his information, identity problems, and it's just so terrifying. I think there's still a lot of people in the world, in this country specifically, that don't really believe this is truly happening at the scale it's happening at. Can you weigh in, because you've got so many years vested in this? Can you weigh in on what some of that might look like what is truly happening in the world right now with this type of scenario?
Yeah, like I was talking about with the sextortion, I just feel like that's become like such an easy target. I think in talking to one of our experts and advisors who's really been diving into this on on the sextortion side has really uncovered a lot of these things, to include the Yahoo boys and what was happening there. I mean, he was telling me that really this used to be something that it targeted more towards girls, but like we have this generation of boys who are fairly susceptible to this as being a target. It's really a financial target more than anything else. They don't care about if this boy is going to commit suicide or anything like that. They're doing it towards this quick $100 to $1,000 in a quick numbers game. So what's happening now is they're even weaponizing bots to be able to go after kids at scale in a predatory behavior. So now it's not even like a one-to-one, like, somebody on the other side. They're building bots. They're using technology to go after kids at scale. And then it just becomes like which kids are going to respond, which kids are going to start in that conversation. And then when it gets to a certain point, like they can jump in and exploit. And so, the numbers are crazy. I just looked recently, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has had like 20,000 of these reports around sextortion specifically. I think that's in this last 12 months. But that's a lot. And the cases, I've talked to a couple fathers recently. One of them, his name's Brian Montgomery. He was in the news quite a bit. His son committed suicide, and this happened in a way where he was an All-American kid, played football. He was like captain of the football team. He was like 16 years old, and I think he was in Missouri, if I remember correctly. Missouri. Just a great kid. Everybody loved him. Super positive, like I believe Christian conservative family. This kid had everything going for him. The conversation started around midnight. So the kid's in his room around midnight with his phone, and he gets ping, gets a message, starts going back and forth, ends up sending a photo that he shouldn't have. I think it was a photo that he sent that he shouldn't have sent. And within 6 hours, he'd committed suicide. So by the morning, it wasn't even like he woke up the next morning at the breakfast table. He was talking to his parents, and he was a little bit off. They never even had a chance to see him or talk to him again after this happened. So again, like that's what we're seeing. And so to be able, and it can happen to any one of us, and it can happen. It's happening at scale. The scale, I don't even know. I just know that it's getting way bigger, way faster. And so it's like the time is just perfect for us to come into that market and offer parents that solution of being able to actually have that visibility into seeing those threats and engage their child in that positive way, whatever that looks like. So, the numbers just get so crazy so fast. And actually, if anybody wants to, you can go on to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They've created this video. It's interactive video. So you basically go in there, and it's like you're this boy, and you get the message. It's like ding, and it's like, how do you want to respond to this? Do you respond? And it gives you a stat. And it says, well, you said you don't want to respond. 75% of kids do respond to this, right? And then so it forces you to respond. You go to the next level, and it's like, okay, now here's the new message that comes in. It goes back and forth until you basically finally send that photo, and it works you into it. And as soon as you finally send that photo, you can hear the boy. You can hear his like heart rate. Like it gets you like, it makes my skin tingle right now, because it's like you can hear the intensity of like him freaking out and his elevated, he's freaking out. Like immediately he's like, what do I do? What do I do? And as soon as he's in that position, they're hitting him barrage of like, if you don't do this right now, we're going to do this. We're going to do this, and it starts out like, give me $1,000. And he's like, I don't have $1,000. And they're like, well, you better give me $500 right now. And they kind of like negotiate it down, I think a little bit, but it was just boom, 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 boom. And he's just freaking out. And you can just put yourself in that kid's shoes, and you can just feel it. And you can imagine if that was your kid. It's like, it moves you. It's wild.
Anybody who's a parent and they're hearing this right now, obviously they're going to do something about it. And just having this tool, it is such a powerful thing. You're going to have no issues raising the capital to get this thing going. And getting this in the hands. And I love the idea of the movement, right? Because it's not just about getting the app out, finished, funded, all that stuff. It's about the movement of people spreading this, saying, okay, we can control a lot of this stuff. We can shut this stuff down from happening. And the bottom line is we can see what our kids are up to and what attacks might be coming in on them. So this is absolutely awesome stuff. There's going to be a GoFundMe site or a crowdfunding site, and we'll put that up in my link tree, and we'll put it in my bio so that people can go to it. And then obviously, if you're an investor out there, we'll give you the information to reach out to Jeremy so you can have a one-on-one conversation, not a bot, but a real human conversation. And we're going to keep blasting this off, man. This is just awesome stuff, man. On the more human side of you, I always like to end with one thing, and that's I want to hear a story from you, a hero story. Somebody in your life that changed your life. You saw something that was so iconic that everybody doesn't know. You know, you got to keep telling these stories, sharing these stories. They're so important and vital to the success of America and just the youngest generation who are starting to now watch this to get fired up about America and maybe about service. So you got one of those stories to share?
Oh, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is somebody that I guess spoke into my life was actually my mom was the secretary for the church when I was a little kid. So I was like 3 years old. And so my mom would be in this little office area, and sometimes I'd be at work with her, apparently. And so the pastor of the church, I just really appreciated this guy. He's passed away now, passed away a couple years ago. But throughout my life, this guy really was a figure of somebody who spoke encouragement into me. And so from the time I was a little kid, I'd slide a penny under his door and, he'd slide it back, and then eventually like he'd probably open the door and I'd have a conversation with him. And he just always made time for me as a kid that wasn't his kid, but like, he just did that. And I even remember when I got out of the Navy, I came and I spoke to the church, not to the church, but to a men's group of the church. And he was, he was still the pastor there. And he just really like spoke a really strong word of like, I don't know, like sometimes I guess we get out of the Navy and there's a lot of guys in our background, we're not really even sure if we're still good people, like we know we are, but we've done a lot of things where we're just kind of like, I'm not really sure how good a person I actually am. And it's not that any of us are that good, but like again, at the church side, we're redeemed through grace. But the whole point of it was he just spoke encouragement into me. It was like, you're a good man and you're doing good things. And sometimes you just need to hear that. And I think that as parents, we have to speak those positive encouragement to our children and even the other children that are around, because those things actually stuck with me in a way where it was like, sometimes I just needed to be reminded that like, despite everything else going on, like, I am a good person and I am trying to do good things. And like, it just puts you on that track to do something good, right? It's just positive encouragement from somebody else. And for that particular individual, I kind of had a lifetime of him doing that, which was pretty cool.
Wow. That's awesome, man. There's no love in the service for sure. You look to your left and right and like, hey, bro, you want to give me a pat on the back today? And they're like, get your job done, dude. You gonna cry? Yeah. But it does feel super rewarding. And when you get that love from somebody special too, somebody meaningful. And even if it comes from somebody who isn't in your life, that's all the more better, man. Well, we're going to blast this thing out for you, man. Everybody, I want you to go check out Spyderwatch.com. That's SPYDER watch.com. Get acquainted with it. If you're interested in talking to Jeremy about getting invested in it, we'll connect you. Obviously, his handles and his information will be before and after the show. And there will be a crowdfunding site coming out in a few weeks. So we'll be blasting that in my bio. And obviously, if you're following him, which you need to go follow him, then you'll see it on his stuff as well. So thanks for joining us, brother. I appreciate you sharing this. And more importantly, thanks for what you're doing to fight for all of us parents and for all our children.
Yeah, appreciate you highlighting this. It's an impactful thing, and it's something that's got to be done. So I'm blessed to be one of those people who feels like I'm living my purpose right now. And I get to talk to a lot of people, and sometimes they're just struggling in their job and they're struggling to find purpose. And you started this out with the transition, right, of how you transition out of the military. and we all have to sometimes figure it out for a while, maybe drive tractors for a while or whatever. But, driving tractors was not my purpose. But there's been a number of things that have led to this. And eventually, you find your purpose and you kind of know it when you do. And so I'm blessed to be in that position.
You're the man.
Frog Man.